Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear viewers and listeners, Assalamu alaikum. I have introduced this segment to address critical questions that may be of interest to mankind. The written contents of these videos are available on my website quranwisdom.com in Q&A section. Each video will be short and focused on a specific question only. Today's question is interest earned on bank deposits riba? Many Muslims erroneously believe that interest earned on bank deposits is a form of riba. This false belief is derived from the fact that religious scholars and clergymen, out of sheer ignorance about the concept of riba as enunciated in the glorious Koran and interest as an economic concept, misguide mankind. Before we look into the relevant verses of the glorious Quran on this subject, let us first understand the institution of banking and its role in modern economic environment. Commercial banks primarily serve as a bridge between borrowers and lenders. Lenders are the people who have surplus funds to deposit in a bank account, while borrowers are those individuals who need those funds for personal and business consumption. The important point to bear in the mind is that banks are business entities who operate as a bridge between the borrowers and the lenders to earn profits in the form of interest rate differentials. Interest rate differentials imply that banks offer a low rate of interest to the depositors, also called lenders, on their deposits, while they charge a high rate of interest to the borrowers. Suppose the bank may offer 5% annual interest on a particular deposit account, while the same bank may charge an annual interest of 12% to the borrower. In this case, the difference of 7% between 5% interest on deposits and 12% interest on borrowings or loans is the income of the bank. So, banks are not poor people or needy persons who may be given money in the form of charity to please Allah Almighty. Rather, the modern banking system is so robust and business oriented that it charges exorbitant interest rates on its various products such as credit cards, lines of credit, personal loans, and mortgages to meet its business expenses. That is why most of the commercial banks in an economy exert considerable influence, and the central bank of a country is entrusted with the task of regulating the behavior of commercial banks so that they may not exploit the public. Now let us examine the concept of riba in the context of a banking relationship. There are numerous verses in the glorious Quran that highlight the concept of riba and compare it with trading, charity, or sadaqat. So let us start with the definition of riba and then proceed to other verses that may be relevant in the context of banking relationship. The concept of riba is beautifully explained in chapter 3 verse 130 of Quran in the following words. You who believe, do not consume riba, doubled and redoubled. Be mindful of God so that you may prosper. This verse of Quran is the cornerstone about riba. It explicitly defines riba as a means of multiplying one's wealth many times over, that is, doubled and redoubled. The phrase, be mindful of God, in this context also highlights the fact that doubling and redoubling one's wealth by whatever means is a repulsive act in the sight of God. Let us examine the relevance of riba in the context of interest earned on a bank deposit. We all know that banks offer almost negligible annual interest on simple deposits. It is less than 1% per annum that may not be sufficient to compensate for erosion in the purchasing power of money caused by inflation during the tenure of deposits. Even for long-term deposits, the real interest rate, that is net of inflation, is less than 5% in most economies. So the annual interest earned on a bank deposit never results in doubling or redoubling one's wealth in the account. Therefore, since it does not meet the criterion set by the Lord of the universe for riba, it cannot be termed as riba by any prudent believer in God. Now let us examine verse 39 of chapter 30 of glorious Quran. It reads, whatever you lend out in riba to gain value through other people's wealth will not increase in God's eyes, but whatever you give in charity, in your desire for God's approval, will earn multiple rewards. In the light of wisdom provided by this verse of glorious Quran, when we lend money to a needy person, we should never ask for riba over it and either forgive it as a charity or stick to principal amount only. This is because we are helping a needy person for his necessities of life, and charity is the most commendable act in the sight of God. Now, when we lend money to the bank, even if the bank subsequently lends it to somebody for any purpose, can it be called charity on our part? The answer is in the negative, because the bank is a commercial institution and not a needy person that is asking for sadaqat or charity to meet its day-to-day needs. So this verse does not apply to a banking relationship. Now look at verse 280 of chapter 2 of the glorious Quran to further explore this concept. It reads, "If your debtor be in straits, grant him a delay until he can discharge his debt. But if you waive the sum as alms, it will be better for you, if you but knew it." The wording of this verse clearly tells us that it relates to a situation where the needy borrower is unable to pay back the loan, so he must be granted reprieve either in the form of delay in the repayment of loan or waiving the loan as a charity. However, a commercial bank with $1 billion of net assets is not a needy person who may be offered charity or waiver of interest. Therefore, the wisdom provided by these verses of the glorious Quran confirms that interest earned on a bank deposit account is not riba in the sight of Lord of the universe. Some people may argue that the owners of a bank should act upon these verses and offer reprieve to their borrowers in case of need. It may be noted that banks are commercial entities and not charities, so they cannot offer sadaqat to needy people. The maximum they can do is to reschedule the loan repayment to facilitate a borrower. And this is what most banks do under normal circumstances. One who borrows money from the bank for personal or business consumption should bear this fact in mind to avoid any disappointment. In some Muslim countries, under the influence of religious scholars and their clergy, they have come up with the idea of Islamic banking. That is exactly the replica of modern commercial banking, except with a change in the name. Metaphorically, this relates to a situation where a Muslim and an atheist are wearing cotton shirts. However, the Muslim insists that his shirt is Islamic shirt, while that of the atheist is an un-Islamic shirt, although both are made from cotton yarn. So a prudent understanding of the glorious Quran can relieve many Muslims from this anxiety where they try to develop an economic system that is devoid of spirit of the glorious Quran. May Allah guide the Muslim brothers and sisters to ponder over the wisdom provided in the glorious Quran to avoid such traps. Those of you who may be interested in a complete understanding of riba and interest may listen to my 4 detailed monologues on this channel under the title Riba and Interest, posted almost 4 years ago. I conclude my monologue on the topic, is interest earned on bank deposits riba, with a prayer that Allah Almighty may bless this effort and enable us to apply reason and seek guidance only from the glorious Quran in all matters of life. Please subscribe and share my channel for promoting teachings of glorious Quran to the mankind. May Allah reward your effort. Amen.